Commissioner Fielder, it's Patricia. Do you hear us okay?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're
My
ready. We just need a couple more commissioners in the room.
Yeah, no problem. It's 4 minutes until go time, but I just wanted to let you know that my Outlook calendar in my older work computer did update, so it was in there. It just took a little bit for it to update.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Jeffrey's coming too. You back?
Is Commissioner Wellborn expected to come to this meeting?
Yes, he is.
We'll give him a minute. All right, there he is. All right, this is Vice President Fielder, and I will be chairing this meeting today. So I call the meeting to order. This is our business meeting of the Montana Public Service Commission scheduled for Tuesday, May 13th. And would my colleagues please rise and our guests to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I'll have Commissioner Pinocci lead us in this, please. Commissioner.
Flag of the United States.
Justice for all. Thank you. All right, for roll call, present today, I am appearing remotely. This is Vice President Fielder from my beautiful district. I'm apologize, but I had a couple conflicting meetings in my district today and wasn't going to be able to make the travel work to be there in person with you. So please forgive me for appearing remotely with you. We also have Commissioner Pinocci and Commissioner Bukacek and Commissioner Wellborn. Okay, is the audio still coming through well?
It is.
Okay, great. All right, so are there any public commenters in the room today who wish to comment on a matter under the jurisdiction of the Montana Public Service Commission? Are there any public commenters in the room?
There are none.
Seeing none, are there any public commenters online?
There are none.
Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you. There are no changes to the commission business meeting schedule today. So, and no other announcements. So we will move into action items. So the first action item, we have two sets of minutes to approve. First would be the minutes for the week of April 21st, 2025. The chair would entertain a motion on approval of the minutes for April 21st, 2025.
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Wellborn has moved and Commissioner Bukacek has seconded approval of the minutes for April 21st, 2025. That's the week of April 21st, 2025. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries 4-0. Okay, next is the minutes for the legislative update meeting of the commission during the week of April 28th. Do I hear a motion on that?
I so move.
Thank you, Commissioner Wellborn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Commissioner Wellborn has moved and Commissioner Bukacek has seconded approval of the minutes from the legislative update the week of April 28th, 2025. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, commissioners and guests, we will move into work session number 1, which is docket number 2024.08.088, Northwestern Energy West Montana Cut Bank Gas Company, regarding Northwestern Energy West Montana and Cut Bank Gas Company's joint application for approval of the purchase and sale of assets and associated relief. Mr. Hamilton,
Thank you, Vice President Fielder, and good afternoon, Commissioners. The purpose of this work session is to consider approval of Northwestern's application. Actually, it's a joint application of Northwestern, Energy West Montana, and Cutbank Gas Company to approve the acquisition of EWM and CBGC by Northwestern in accordance with the terms of the stipulation and settlement agreement that those parties have entered into. Now, currently, the parent company of EWM and CBGC does business as Hope Companies Incorporated. This acquisition was motivated in part by Hope's changing business strategy and its desire to focus on its utility operations in West Virginia. On July 29th, 2024, Northwestern Energy, EWM, and CBGC, together who I'll refer to as the joint applicants, entered into an asset purchase agreement under which Northwestern would agree to buy the assets and certain liabilities of EWM and CBGC for approximately $39 million. That purchase price is subject to adjustments for cash working capital and certain capital expenditures as of the closing date. On August 28th, 2024, the joint applicants filed an application seeking approval of the transaction by the Commission. The MCC, the Montana Consumer Council, was the only intervener in this proceeding. Initially, MCC argued the acquisition was not in the public interest and could harm customers. MCC raised a variety of arguments, including, first, that the parties' claims of benefits to customers were self-serving and unsupported. Second, that the structure of the transaction would wipe out an account known as the accumulated deferred income tax, which effectively offsets a utility's rate base. And third, that Northwestern had reserved the right to seek recovery of certain costs from customers, including an acquisition premium and certain transaction costs, which MCC opposed. On February 13th, 2025, the parties submitted a stipulation and settlement agreement, which they assert resolves all contested issues in this docket. In that settlement, Northwestern committed not to request recovery of the acquisition premium, outside services transition costs, and rebranding costs. Northwestern also committed to provide at least 12 months of actual post-closing operational and accounting data for the EWM and CBGC utilities when it requests a rate increase for those utilities, which effectively means that Northwestern cannot file for a general rate increase for those utilities for a year. Now, when Northwestern does file that request for increased rates, it must provide detailed information to the Commission, including a post-closing ADIT balances. ADIT is the accumulated deferred income tax. All arguments regarding what should happen with that accumulated deferred income tax balance are reserved for the future rate case. In other words, by approving the stipulation today, the Commission would not be foreclosing any possible outcomes with respect to that ADIT balance. Finally, the post-closing entities that would own EWM and CBGC assets would be subject to the same ring fencing measures that the Commission has imposed upon Northwestern, most recently in docket number 2022.06.064. Those are the ring fencing measures that apply to all of Northwestern Energy's operations in Montana. Now, a public hearing was held on this stipulation and settlement agreement on February 20th, 2025, at which the joint applicants and MCC presented testimony supporting the settlement and the purchase by Northwestern Energy of EWM and CBGC. Upon a review of the record and the hearing transcript, Commission staff recommends approval of the transaction as outlined in the draft order, which was attached to the staff memo in your business meeting materials. Please note, however, that staff has identified certain non-substantive edits that we will need to make to the order if it is approved by the Commission. As previously mentioned, the Commission held a hearing in this case. At that hearing, no party moved to admit into evidence the data responses that were provided during the course of this docket. Accordingly, we'll need to remove citations to those data responses as they appear in the draft order. Those are merely citations, however. We have reviewed each one of those citations and found alternative authorities to support the propositions stated in the order in the hearing transcript or in the pre-filed testimony that was moved into evidence. So with that, Commissioners, again, the staff recommendation is to approve the transaction according to the terms of the stipulation and settlement agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Also joining me today is Mr. Tim Nerstad from our regulatory division.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Are there any questions of staff from the Commissioners before we entertain a motion? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the acquisition and settlement agreement, to issue the draft order as the commission's final order, and to authorize staff to make the clerical edits as needed. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to support staff recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinocci.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. The motion has been made to approve the acquisition and settlement agreement, to issue the draft order as the commission's final order, and to authorize staff to make non-substantive clerical edits as needed. Motion has been seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Pinocci.
Vice President Fielder, thank you. So I'm sure if anyone is listening, a concern they'll have is, do you think rates will stay the same? Will rates go up, down? We may have covered this ground, but it's good to bring it up again. Mr. Hamilton, what are your thoughts there?
Vice President Fielder, Commissioner Pinocci, I think it's a good question. Under the terms of the stipulation and settlement agreement, as I mentioned, Northwestern has committed to providing the commission with a full 12 months worth of actual data, post-closing operational and accounting data. And there's only one way that they can get that data, and that's by operating the utility for 12 months. So I can tell you that for a period of 12 months, there will be no changes in the general rates for EWM and CBGC customers. Now, there is still a tracking mechanism through which supply costs are tracked and recovered. And so as the commodity price of natural gas changes, we should continue to expect to see those prices change. But this is a utility, or these are utilities, it's important to remember, that have not had general rate increases for quite some time. And so as we learned in the hearing from the witnesses who testified on behalf of EWM and CBGC, were it not for this transaction, the parent company, Hope Utilities, would be coming in and asking the commission for a rate increase for these two utilities and their customers. And so in a way, this particular settlement agreement does delay what would otherwise be the request for increased rates.
I sure want to remind everybody that when Northwestern took over Sleepy Hollow, the rates were able to decrease and customer service increased. One thing that happened at Sleepy Hollow is people weren't receiving their bills at all. Northwest Energy took over the billing, arrived monthly. So we saw a lower cost and improved customer service. I sure hope to see that possibility here, and sure want to tell Northwestern Energy how happy I was to see what happened with Sleepy Hollow. But certainly we need to take over a company that's been around for a while. There could be some improvements that need to be done, maybe service that's been neglected, old gas lines and such. I sure want to prepare people for that. But my thoughts are, does Northwest Energy serve the electric customers in Cut Bank, or is that a cooperative? Anyone know that?
Northwestern does serve electric customers in the service area that's to be affected by the proposed acquisition.
One thing I'm hoping is they can send the electric bill with the gas bill, and this will cut postage and cost on mailing the bill. They might be able to put them both in one envelope, and that can add up to a pretty good amount of money in a year. So I'm hoping those ideas will be implemented, and I want to help out with any ideas I can to ensure prices can stay the same. However, if the price of natural gas goes up, that's something that has to be looked at. I think the hope is that as Northwest Energy expands with more customers, the hope is that prices will be lower than if it was one company trying to manage a small group. And I hope there's some hope there. Do you think that's a possibility as a company takes these smaller customers over, that gives them an advantage to keep rates down and not go up? What are your thoughts there?
Vice President Fielder, Commissioner Pinocci, that was one of the arguments raised by the joint applicants in their original request to the commission that there would be synergies, there would be economies of scale and efficiencies to be achieved through this transaction. MCC's initial position was that those representations were not well documented. What I can represent to you is that the settlement and stipulation agreement does require a substantial amount of data to be reported to the commission when Northwestern does come in for whatever future general rate case it has planned for these utilities. And so the commission will get a real sense of what economies of scale, what efficiencies were achieved through Northwestern sort of consolidating this island in the middle of its service territory and providing, hopefully, economies of scale.
The current owners, can you tell me if they were getting their natural gas from Canada most of the time?
As far as it relates to the Great Falls service territory, I believe that's correct, Commissioner Panochi. Although I think in more in the south with West Yellowstone, I believe that's from the Colorado, the SIG.
The reason I bring that up is I'm concerned that a tariff could be added to the natural gas coming from Canada. And I sure want to encourage we send a letter to Washington addressed to the Trump administration asking that we do not see tariffs added to natural gas coming from Canada, because I don't think Montana's excited about that. So I sure want to cover that ground. Did MCC have any concern about that, or am I the only one thinking of that?
Commissioner, I would say that at the time that the commission was considering the application and going through the hearing process, the topic of tariffs implemented by the White House was not part of the docket. So there's really no discussion of presidential tariffs in the evidentiary record before us.
Neil, I see you stepped up to the plate, sir. You might have something to add.
Members of the commission, Commissioner Panochi. I just wanted to add regarding natural gas supply that when the natural gas markets were opened up, open access back in the 80s, I believe, Energy West, then Great Falls Gas, received a share. So they have a share of use of the Cobb storage field of in northwestern Montana. And they use that. So they buy their gas. I think mostly it's contract from suppliers out of who get their gas from the AECO field up in Alberta, AECO, and then they store it. So they operate fundamentally the same as Northwestern in that aspect, in that they're procuring gas in the summer and storing it for winter use when the prices might spike up, and then they'll have low cost gas and storage. The West Yellowstone operation, I believe the last time we looked into that, yeah, that's LNG, I believe, liquefied natural gas, and they have a contract with the supplier who kind of supplies it, and I don't know where they get their gas. I mean, presumably it's Wyoming or Colorado gas, but then they get it put into liquefaction. They put it through that, and so that I was just trying to clarify some of their. But as far as to the main tenor of your point, I think that most of Energy West Great Falls customers and Cascade and Hardy Creek is still propane, I believe, but there's only about 40 customers there. But Cascade and Great Falls, I believe that's mostly AECO gas from Alberta.
Well, isn't it true that Northwest Energy gets some natural gas from Canada?
That is true.
Well, I'm hearing rumors that we could see 100% tariff what if you're hearing? Is this going to affect natural gas, or do you think we don't need to worry about that? What are your concerns about?
Well, Commissioner,
raise that.
I'll just wait. I'm gonna cut it off there. This goes outside the scope of the record on this docket, and I think Commissioner Pinocci, it's not an invalid point. It's a good point, but it's outside the scope of this docket. So we need to contain our discussion and our decision on the scope of this actual docket.
Well, the ratepayers are concerned, so I brought the point up. And if
Yep,
you don't want
it's
to
a-
discuss it,
it's a-
that's fine. I brought
All
it.
right, thank you. No, as I said, I think it's a good point, but it's just outside the scope of this particular matter. All right, any other comments or questions from commissioners?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Bukacek?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to give a few comments brief as to why it would be a yay vote on this. It was had a very good hearing February 20th with the proceeding stipulation and settlement agreement by the joint parties and the Montana Consumer Council. There was evidence of good faith, quality collaboration among the joint parties, and diligent critical input given by the Montana Consumer Council. Settlement Order 7981D reflects the Public Service Commissioners thoroughly addressing MCC's concerns and incorporating their qualifying conditions to my satisfaction. As lined out in the conclusions of law portion, the settlement satisfies precedent PSC standards for evaluating public utility sales and acquisitions. Due to the quality of the work done by the joint parties, MCC and the PSC, this is an easy yay vote to approve this acquisition and settlement agreement.
Thank you. Commissioner, any other questions from commissioners or comments? Okay, I will just add on, Commissioner Bukacek, to the points you raised, I think are very salient. And to nutshell it for me, I also find this to be a relatively easy decision to make. We have a willing seller. We have a willing buyer. We did have some issues of contention that were raised during the proceeding, and those have been satisfied through the settlement agreed to by all parties, including the Montana Consumer Council. So I will also be a yes vote on this docket. With that, we will go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of Commissioner Pinocci's motion to approve the acquisition and settlement agreement in docket 2024.08.088, please say aye.
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 Aye. Are there any opposed? Say nay. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff. All right, we will move on to work session item number 2. And this is a commission initiated item to consider the recruitment and selection process for the commission's external affairs coordinator. Ms. Lake.
Thank you, Vice President Fielder, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Pleasure to be here today to discuss this issue with you. A few short months ago, you may have recalled the same process being conducted for my position. The Commission has a handful of appointed positions, and with these appointments comes the ability to vote whether to hire on a competitive or non-competitive basis. So as with my position, the External Affairs position is also an appointed position requiring this decision of the Commission. I'm happy here to represent the ACT team today. We discussed this at length and came to a unanimous recommendation for the Commission today. We are recommending hiring this position, filling this position, and hiring via a competitive process. This will allow many applicants to apply from various different backgrounds, and our team to provide a very thorough hiring panel to select this individual. Before you in your folders, we've prepared the job description. Please feel free to review that, what your external affairs coordinator's duties are. And we've also prepared a memorandum for you to review as well, with staff's thoughts as to the pertinence of this position and the current additional duties that other staff are taking on currently in the interim prior to hiring this position. So to summarize, your ACT team does recommend hiring this position through a competitive process, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Alana, can you just run us through the the highlights of the responsibilities of this position, the External Affairs Coordinator position?
Absolutely, Vice President Fielder. The highlights, this position is responsible for public policy. The ability to sit on committees to track important issues that the commission would be interested in. They are also responsible for communications, external affairs, media relations, website, and of course, legislative support, both during the legislative session as well as throughout the interim as well.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions of staff from commissioners? Alana, I see that in your memo, it's in our packet, that the ACT team strongly recommends that the External Affairs Coordinator position be filled as soon as possible. Was that and you said that was a unanimous vote by the ACT team, or a unanimous position?
Vice President Fielder, thank you for the question. Yes, we strongly recommend this based on the fact that the duties of the External Affairs Coordinator have been taken on by other staff. Our staff is extremely busy conducting their primary duties, and taking on these additional duties is taking a toll on their ability to conduct their primary duties. I'll also emphasize that our last External Affairs Coordinator was hired strictly to do the legislative portion, so our staff has been carrying this load for quite a long time, and that is the weight behind the strongly recommends.
Okay. So, commissioners, what we have before us now is a decision on which process to use, whether we want to use a competitive process and advertise this job vacancy publicly and try to see if we can collect a broad and deep pool of prospective applicants to consider, or if we as a commission want to make this a non-competitive posting where we would just basically not advertise it and just talk to individuals about and inviting them to apply for the position. So I would entertain a motion one way or the other from any member of the commission.
Madam Chair, I would move that we use a competitive process when reaching out, or anyway, using a competitive process for the hiring process of this position.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilborn. A motion has been made to use a competitive hiring process for the External Affairs Coordinator position. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Wilborn.
Yes, and I totally see, the benefit to, especially to help our staff do the jobs that they currently have in a more efficient manner, by getting the ball rolling on this. But I also would, I guess, just urge the commission to, to borrow a quote from the late Wyatt Earp, fast is fine, but accuracy is final. So we need to take our time in a hurry, kind of, but I think it's imperative on us to do our job and due diligence in hiring the right person, even if it does take a minute or two longer, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will just respond by saying that this is the first step that does start the ball rolling, but a selection process can take a minimum of 5 to 6 weeks under normal processes, and maybe a couple of months, depending on how many rounds of interviews we go, or whether we have a pool of applicants that we feel, would satisfy the needs of the agency. So this just is a first step to allow our HR staff to start moving forward with posting the position and starting to get lines in the water, as the fishermen say, to see what we get. So every commissioner in on the commission has the the right to participate in the selection process. So all will be invited to participate in that. And there's guidelines that all members of the selection panel would have to follow once we even have a pool of applicants that, you know, we're ready to interview. So I think it will take some weeks. And I know that Commissioner Molnar has expressed some opinions about how he'd like to go forward with this. And as he and I discussed last week, I don't think this action today, should this motion pass, is necessarily at odds with that. He might want to wait a lot longer. In fact, I think he wants to wait a lot longer to actually fill it. But today's decision simply is the method that the commission will use, and then we can work on filling it at another time. So with that said, is there any further discussion on the motion that you have before you? Seeing none, all in favor of Commissioner Wellborn's motion to use a competitive solicitation process or selection process for the External Affairs Coordinator position, please say aye.
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 Aye. Are there any opposed? Say nay. None opposed. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Ms. Lake. Okay. Seeing no further business before the commission today, the next commission business meeting will be Tuesday, May 20th at 1:30 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.